In language-based learning, that lens, we're talking so much about how much is a student reading, how much is a student writing, and whose voices are being heard in the classroom.
Because we have to speak to each other, we have to know how to write to each other, and we have to know how to interpret what is written to us. So
language is so much more than just talking. It's listening, it's communicating, it's writing, it's thinking about what you're learning. It's all of those things kind of wrapped into one.
Language-based lens of learning is basically taking the language of your subject, your content, and making it relevant to them. For me, like looking at science, talking about scientific writing, scientific vocabulary, scientific reading, technical manuals, those types of things.
Reading and writing should be complementary. They go together. In recent years, we have learned the benefits of combining those two skills in pretty much everything that we do. Students should be able to have the time to write about something after they've read.
Being a language arts teacher, I think the Language Center lens naturally relates to it, but I think one of the things that I like to focus on is making sure that they're doing all three in a lesson. So it's easy to say, oh, my students are always reading or always writing, but I have to remember the third. Are they talking to each other and listening to each other?
Well, and I've heard this said, I don't know who said it, but about thinking through the pen. I think I've done a lot of studying on writing to learn and how writing helps you to learn. So getting kids to write down their thoughts and ideas, it does help with the learning. I can only see that being a positive in every classroom, whether it's your social studies classroom, whether it's your science classroom, even your math classroom. I can see how writing your thoughts down and what you thought you knew about something or what you took from a lesson, I don't know how that couldn't help. So it just comes natural in a language arts classroom, but I don't see why it couldn't be natural in every classroom.
In the past, I would say I kind of cut back on how my language was written in labs and technical writing and reading that we would do. And then I started to think about it more, and it's like, no, this is the stuff that you need to know. So I found myself basically taking out what I had taken out, I put back in, and I increased the rigor in what I wanted them to be able to understand. So there are words that when they see it the first time, you might have to pick up on contextual clues to learn that word. You might have to be able to look at back and see what a word is. We might have to have done it as a vocabulary word in class, because the real world, technical manuals are something that you're going to see, whether it's you're connecting a new Blu-ray player or a video game console, or you're doing a graduate level lab. You have to be able to speak, write, and talk at a technical level. So language-based is a huge thing in the sciences.
I'm talking, surprisingly. It's crazy at first. I know I've already said this, but getting them talking to each other about what they're supposed to be talking about, whether it's a short little 30-second discussion, think, pair, share, sharing to the class. And I think as you progress through the year, your one goal as a teacher when it comes to the language-based lens is that the students are extremely comfortable sharing their thoughts, reading what they've written, understanding that, okay, they're being judged on their opinion, but they're not being laughed at, or that's not something that's going to come back later in the hall like, hey, dummy, I heard what you said in English class. That it's more like, hey, they shared, maybe I didn't agree with them, but they still were sharing. And I think that's where I try to go with the language-based lens.
It's discussion. In my classes, it's being able to take what we're looking at, what we're trying to learn, and to discuss it and to put it into language that makes sense to them and gives them meaning and purpose behind what it is we're learning.
I think it looks a variety of ways. It's not just students sitting and listening to you talk. That's part of it. They have to learn how to listen, but also they need to learn how to communicate their own ideas. So there's a lot of writing that takes place. There's a lot of talking with each other, kind of going with the social. They're talking to each other, talking about what they're thinking about what it is you're saying. Do they see it in the real world? All of those things are forms of the language lens.
You know, one thing that a lot of us run into is getting every kid to feel comfortable. And there's all kinds of things you can do. Those kids that are reluctant to share, they're very introverted. Getting them to just read to you and putting them with a partner that they at least feel comfortable with, that they can even read very quietly to them. A lot of kids will just, they love everyone to hear what they've written, and they'll read it very loud and proud. And some kids, you know, really whisper it, or they try to become invisible. So it's just giving those kids a little bit of encouragement, maybe slightly modifying those things for them so they feel comfortable. But then hopefully eventually getting them where they're okay with other students hearing some of their thoughts, because a lot of those quiet kids have they maybe have the best because they spend a lot of their days observing how the world works, and you just, you know, to get them to share that is sometimes pretty cool.
Focus on the Collins writing, focus on the FCAs. You do not have to be a language arts teacher. I was not the strongest writer, and I'm still not the strongest writer. But trust in your skills and have them focus on what they're doing in their ELA classrooms, just in your content. You must focus on your content, and then you can build those FCAs around them.
I find when I'm planning that I always look at my lesson and think, how can I get the kids to do the maximum amount of work during my class period? So whether it be writing, whether it be talking, and I kind of mix it up. So some days they'll do a lot more writing than other days, and on the days where they're not writing as much, I make them talk a lot more so that we're focusing on each of them. Maybe not in the same class period, but throughout a week, they're doing every type of communication.
Have the students speak and use the words as they speak. I think that the more you have students vocalize things and respond out loud, or just read passages out loud or talk out loud, I think that really helps them with their language.
Be rigorous. Give them every opportunity and give them a lot of it. Give them words that you even at one point in time probably had a hard time understanding, and make it relevant to them.
It's the best thing to make your English class dynamic. If trying to get away from the old school, here's a grammar worksheet, here's the grammar rule, fill this out, and we'll go over the worksheet tomorrow. It just gets away from that, and it just makes the day and the class fun for both the teacher and the student. That's, well, as fun as English can be. Not everyone is, you know.
Don't be afraid to try it. If you are a science teacher and you know your subject, but you don't know about grammar, that doesn't matter. You know what you want kids to learn, and asking them to write down what they learned in that classroom. You can read that. You can grade that. You don't need to worry about all those other things that we language arts teachers concern ourselves with. You just need to worry about your content, and it can be expressed in writing.
Just give them a lot of opportunity. I mean, that's the key, and that's the one thing I struggled with. This was the first year that I personally went back and said, nope, this is what I got to do now. Okay, I'm going to not take the easy way out and not give them the baby down, the watered down version of whatever it might be.
It's probably one of the most important. Getting kids to be able to interpret what they read, to be able to discuss what they read. As somebody who often suffered when I was in middle school, as far as being able to understand what I read. I could read, but to be able to tell you what I read was often difficult for me. So language-based lens, that's where you really catch the kid.